It brings me great pleasure to introduce Ben Consoli. Ben is very much a power user on Final Cut Pro 10. Ladies and gentlemen, Ben Consoli.
Hi. Thank you guys so much. I was an early adopter of Final Cut 10. I fell in love with it right away. It took about 6 months for me to transfer my entire studio over to the platform and get all of my editors and assistant editors up and running on 10. And since then, I haven't looked back. And one of the things about 10 that is really intriguing and exciting to me is the way that Multicam works, because by far, I think it's really the best multicam in the business. So every time I do a presentation, people always ask me multicam questions. So I figured I'm just going to do a whole thing on multicam. And if you've seen me before, you know this. I am not a teacher. This isn't what I do. So this isn't really a tutorial. It's not a lesson. It's not a lecture. It's just the way that I use multicam. It's not the only way. And it may not even be the best way, but it works for me, and I want to show you guys the types of things that I'm doing. So let's get into it. This is a very simple project. It's called Tap United. It's these award-winning tap dancers from around the world come to the Boston area and do an event. And this is just a very simple 3-camera shoot. We were using EX1s and 3s and shooting at 1920, 1080. And that was it. So it couldn't be any more simple. There's a couple things I like to do in the preferences before I start. I want to make sure that my playback quality is on better performance versus high quality. And I'm doing that because, first of all, this is a laptop, and I just find it to run a little smoother when you're doing multicam if it's on better performance. What you're going to notice is that the playback quality is a little bit soft, but when you're editing and cutting, as long as you can see it and know what you're cutting, it's fine. So that's my recommendation there. I also recommend not selecting Create Optimized Media for multicam clips, because I don't really find that optimized media is necessary for the work that I do, and it also creates a completely new ProRes clip. And for a piece like this that's 2 hours, I just don't need to fill up my hard drive with unnecessary clips. So I keep that deselected. All right, so first thing I do is I usually, when I first start an event, I'll make a few smart collections. For this one, I have 2. One is called Multicam, and one is called Music. So anytime that I have a file that is audio only, it goes into the Music Smart Collection. And anytime I have a clip that's a multicam, it will go into that collection. And that just makes going through your clips a lot faster. So let's make a multicam. You see my cameras here. Camera 1, 2, and 3. This is a 2-part show, so we have a cut in the middle. That's why we have part 1 and part 2. And what I like to do is I like to find a common point within. These cameras are not time code synced at all. There's no jamming there, so they're just willy-nilly. What I like to do is I find a point in the show where all 3 cameras can see it and hear it, and I just put a marker there. And there's really no rhyme or reason to it. As long as I get close enough, there's a point in this track that I know it's a down point, a downbeat that I know I want to sync to. So I'm just going to mark that on my 3 clips here.
Featuring the best tap dancers around the world. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Good. There's that one. I'm going to do the same thing for camera 2.
Welcome to Tap United, featuring the best tap dancers around the world. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
And camera 3. Great. So these are certainly not scientifically placed on any specific frame. They're just there. I'm going to select my 3 clips, and I go up here.
You got a camera. I'm sorry.
What happened?
Nothing. Nothing.
Yep, camera 1, 2, and 3 is all there. I'm getting heckled, people. I know. So I select my clips, and I make a new multicam clip. And I'm going to call this TU for Tap United and BOSCPUG. Angle assembly and angle clip ordering, I don't usually mess with. I leave them automatic, but there are some settings in here so that you can play with. Angle synchronization, I do. Automatic means that we're going to let Final Cut decide on its own, and most of the time it's correct. Timecode is timecode, and we're not jamming timecode, so I don't need that. Content created. If all of your cameras have the same exact time, you can do it by content created. And this could be cool, like if you had multiple people with iPhones shooting at a live concert or something. You'd be able to sync all those really easy. Start of the first clip. Well, the beginnings of my clips are all over the place, so I don't want to do that. First marker on the angle is what I'm going to use. I'm also going to make sure that I use audio for synchronization because it'll use the marker as an anchor, but then use the audio waveforms to finesse. I changed my time code to 0. I'm going to leave my video properties where they are because they're correct. And audio, although you can customize, I'm not going to because I'm happy with what it does. And within seconds, you've got your brand new Multicam right here, TU BOSCPUG. All right, and it also appears in my Multicam smart collections. So I'm going to open this up and go into the angle viewer and show you what I have here. I am kind of a pain in the ass when it comes to organizing my clips. So I do a lot of work in the angle viewer before I even start cutting. And for this piece, there's a few things that I want to do. First of all, I want to change the order of my angles so that camera 1 is on top. Then I have camera 2 and camera 3. Okay. I also want to make camera 1 my monitored angle. And you know this because it's in gray around the border, and that means a monitored angle. And what that means is when you start syncing to the monitored angle, it just tells Final Cut Pro what clip you want to use as a basis for synchronization. All right. Now, I could test this by playing all 3 audio streams, but I trust it, so I don't have to worry about it. So this show, as I said, was in 2 acts. So we synchronized these 3, but watch how easy it is to just continuously add pieces to this, right? I'm going to add the second act right here for camera 1. Camera 2, I'm going to just throw it down here. Camera 3 had to change a battery, so this is in 2 parts. But now these are not synced because I just threw them in, but watch how easy it is to sync this. Because I had selected camera 1 as my monitored angle, I can now go and say sync selection to monitored angle. And what it's going to do is make sure that it's synced. And you saw it move a little bit. Not much has moved, but you saw it move a little bit. I'm going to do the same here. There you go. So now I'm going to have the entire show is synced and ready to go with no problem at all. Now there's a couple things going on with the audio for this, and a lot of people always ask me, how much control do you have over audio in Multicam? And with Final Cut Pro 10's Multicam, it is amazing how much control over audio you have. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. First of all, camera 1 is 2 separate audio feeds. I'm getting the tap mics, the stage mics from the soundboard in one channel, and I'm getting reference audio of the music in the other. And you can just listen channel by channel to know which one we're talking about. Those are our taps, and here's our music. So I basically want to replace the reference audio with the full stereo track because the reference audio is mono and I had no control over it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an angle here. Add angle. I'm going to call this music. And I'm going to just bring in the stereo tracks. Again, no real rhyme or reason to it. I'm just going to listen to where the song begins and throw it in its spot. Okay, it starts around there. So I'm going to drag this in. There's song 1, or song 2. That's about where song 2 starts. Drag that in. And then song 3.
You placing them in a particular...
I'm just placing them kind of where the cursor is, because it doesn't really matter where you place it. As long as it's close enough, you can go right in here, sync selection to monitored angle, again. And this is going to place it exactly where it needs to be. And you don't have to do one piece at a time. You can batch select a bunch and have it work. Final Cut has to think a little bit more, but I do this. There's 27 songs in here, and when I edit this for real, I'm going to just select them all and press sync to sync select to monitor. Yes, it's analyzing by sound waves. So now let's say in the very rare occurrence that it doesn't sync exactly where you want it to. You have complete control over this. You can nudge it, you can move it, you can do whatever you want and get it exactly where you want it to go. And the way you test it is just make sure that all of your channels are on, and then you can just... So I know that this is all synced. I trust it. So I don't need to really test it. But what I do need to do is get my audio to sound better. Because if I just play all of these tracks together, it's a mess. Camera 2 has, it's just a camera-mounted mic. I mean, camera-mounted mic. And so is camera 3. So you hear the ambience of the room. You hear the speakers. You hear people coughing and talking. So all of that is a mess. Plus, it's going to be peaking, and it's going to be horrible. So what I like to do in this situation is, first of all, I don't need the reference audio anymore. So I'm going to remove that and just leave the taps. That's the first thing. Because the taps are so percussive, I like to put a compressor on them. And this, effect here is universal. It goes through the entire track. So when we're editing and we're making cuts, all of the work that I'm doing in here will stay. So you don't have to worry about that. So I set just a basic snare compression for this. You can tweak it if you want to. I don't really feel like I need to, so I'm going to leave it as is. The audience mics, I like to hear a little bit of room when I do live events because it makes it sound more live. So I'm going to lower it, but not all the way, just to 30%. In the music itself, because I'm going to mix it with the taps, and the taps are really what, the reason why people are watching this, I'm going to take these down to -10. These can all be finessed later on. So,
Ben, can we hear what those taps sound like before?
Okay, so he wants to hear what the taps sound like before the compression. So let me just isolate that one track. That's okay. There's a lot of bleed because the stage mics are also picking up everything. But, so, yeah. So I like to get this all sounding the way that I want. Now, for this situation also, I like having the ambience during the performance, but when the people applaud, I really want to hear it. So I want to have more control over how this audio plays and how it sounds. So I'm going to go right to an applause break. And I'm going to make sure that I raise the volume. I'm just going to change the appearance here a little bit. I want to raise the volume up right in this spot. Right? I can keyframe audio within a multicam clip. Yeah. So you can keyframe manually like this, and you can get a nice... There's that. You can also, very easily, do the same thing with a range selection. By pressing R, selecting your range, and just lifting it up, and it makes the keyframes for you automatically. Right? So there's a couple ways that you can customize your audio in this. So that's the way that I like to prepare my audio for this particular situation. Now, like I told you before about the compressor, same thing works for visual effects too. Let's say you want to change one of the tracks to black and white. I don't know why, but you want to. When you go and edit this and make your cuts, every time you show that angle, it's going to be black and white. So this becomes really powerful when when one of your cameras is kind of crappy looking and the color's wrong and you need to change it. These universal effects become very powerful because you don't have to put them on clip by clip by clip when you're editing. You can always go back to your source. Anybody that's using Final Cut 10 now understands the concept of compound clips. Multicams are similar in that everything's wrapped into one clip and you can open it, play it, I guess unwrap it, I don't know what the word would be, but you kind of go into it, play around, come back out, and it's all of the settings that you made inside still appear on the outside. So this audio is done, and I like the way it sounds. I like that the applause comes up when it's supposed to come up, and I am going to now start editing. So let's go in here and make a new project. App United. I can use custom settings if I want to, but when you drag a clip in, it automatically takes whatever the format is of that clip, and I don't need to worry about it. All right, so I go to my multicam, I grab my multicam that we just made and modified. I can drag it in or use key commands. Now, you can play with this like it's its own individual clip. You can trim it, which is really nice, and all sorts of other goodies that we'll get into. But the main thing here is I want to show you guys how easy and fun it is to cut this, because it really is a lot of fun. Let me open up my angles here for you. Okay, so now we've got access to all the angles, and there's a couple of really important things to note. This up here, my new trick that I learned, these are the different ways that you can cut. You can cut video only, which is what we're going to do. You can cut video and audio, or just audio only. And that means that every time you make a cut and switch angles, you're changing either video and audio, you're changing video only or audio only. And anybody that's done multicam in any program understands this concept, so I hope that that's clear. For this case, I want to just do video only because that's all I want to change. I already like the way that the audio sounds. So let's play around for a minute. Wait a minute, where's our sound? You have complete control over every single track, not only in the multicam angle viewer, but here in the project too. And this becomes really, really powerful when you need to just mute a single track or adjust a single track or edit a single track, and we'll get there a little bit further on. But we want them all on because we already made our modifications. Even though track A2, which is the source audio, the reference audio, even though it's there visibly and turned on, it's not going to play because we've already shut it off in the angle viewer. Great, everything's where I want it to be. So let's do some cutting, okay? The great thing about this is what I usually do for musical live events is I'll do one pass where I'm just kind of playing with it as if it's a live tape sort of situation. And you can do this by just clicking, changing your angles like that, really simple. You can also do this by pressing numbers on the keyboard. So camera 1, camera 2, camera 3, right? So you make a whole bunch of cuts. Then what I usually do is I'll go back and redo it and I'll tweak it. And the tweaking in this it's just incredible because I can go in between two shots and I can nudge frame by frame between shots with absolutely no problem at all. And for musical things, it's amazing. So if I miss something, let's say I want it to be out of the shot before her arm goes all the way around, I can just pull it and it's out right before. So I have complete control over everything, right? So, okay, now we know how to go from cut to cut, right? But now that the cut's placed, you're like, you know what? I don't want angle 2 to be here. I want to go to camera 1, right? So you say, okay, great, I'm going to press camera 1. But no, because you actually made a cut here, and you don't want that. See how I made a cut there? I don't want that. So what you can do is, if you like where the cuts are, but you just want to change the angle, just press Control and press Option in the angle. There you go. Option angle, so you can change without making cuts. And the best part about this is you can do it live. So as you're watching it, you can say, you know what, that's kind of a crappy shot. I'm going to change it. And then you change this one. Now, I don't know. I think I want to do that. Oh, maybe I don't. Go back to 1. You just play. Like, this is really the most fun editing in Final Cut 10 for me, is the multicam stuff. I love it. So, in theory, we've cut this whole show. We love it. We're all set. Now this is the part that got me really excited. This is what I love so much about Final Cut 10's Multicam is, let me show you, between every song, right, there's sort of, as they're changing the sets over, there's just kind of dead space, right? And I want to get rid of it, okay? So I can go in there and cut this piece out right after the applause. So I hear the applause. Here comes the applause. Okay, so I want to cut right there and get right into my next song. So I'm going to do this, go right up here and cut. Now, I did not lose sync on the second part of the show. I did not lose sync on the first part of the show. I can just play it right through. But that sounds crappy. So this is where I get so excited, because you can use this just like you do on any other track, where you can drag your audio underneath. You can give it a little fade there. You know, you can play, you can add a transition, although it's black on black, so this was a horrible example, but you could, exactly. It looks so much better. Yeah, so you can do that. And now, the last thing I'm going to say about audio in Final Cut 10, because in Multicam, and this is the thing that really blew my mind when I saw, and this is relatively new. I think this came after Multicam was added, but right now you see audio as just one waveform because it's a culmination of everything together. But if you want to make changes to very specific audio feeds, you can expand the audio components in every single track that is part of this clip is modifiable. You can keyframe it. Let's say, and this has happened to me, a camera mic catches somebody talking or coughing and it gets in the way. You can just highlight the section that sounds horrible and get rid of it. So you have complete control over every track. And let's say, okay, you don't want to see all these tracks. You don't have to. You can remove them from your view. You don't have to see them. Everything's out of your way. Everything's clean and buttoned up. And then when you close it up like this, it's all neat and clean. So the audio and Multicam alone is, that's what really made me, I love the way it functions, but the ability to manipulate audio is what really got me excited. What do you got?
When you affect the audio, is it affecting the original audio from the original camera clip? Or is it just
this section?
But is it just affecting the Multicam segment? So if you go back to the original clip, it will not, the audio will not be affected.
When you go into the angle editor, you can manipulate as the whole entire track. When you're here, you can go piece by piece. And one doesn't, making a change here does not necessarily affect what's going on in the angle editor. But what goes on in the angle editor does affect what's going on in here. So that's why my, the volume changes that I did for the applause is going to appear here. But I can go and take that out in this.
So if you color correct that clip.
You can color correct this clip and it's independent of, that's what, I'm sorry, yeah, I can color correct this one clip and it's gone, and every other instance of the clip is not. You can still,
you're affecting it only in this timeline.
Only in this timeline and only that clip.
Plus, once you put something into a project, it has
Now,
no
if we were
connection
to
back
go
to
back
the
to your
source.
event library, everything's
Oh yeah, yeah.
pristine.
Yep. Yep. It's the same way as if you brought in a clip, or brought in any clip, manipulated it in the project, it's not going to affect the way it looks in the event. Okay?
The color match, would you do that in the Multicam? You wouldn't do it here.
Yeah, I would only do it in here if there was only one clip. Like if somebody, you know, made an accident or the light. Oftentimes you do these things and the lighting people are not lighting for video. So something will be too hot, you got to tone it down. So every once in a while something will happen that needs very particular attention. But if you know it's something that is going to be universal across the whole show, you can. I would do that in the angle editor, and I would do very specific things in here.
And you can do it before or after you did the cut.
Anytime. Anytime.
Yep.
Yep. Like for instance, last year we lost a camera for a minute. I don't know what happened, but the camera was gone for a minute. So we were left with only 2 shots. So I kind of had to, like, I had to pretend that one camera was more than one. So I zoomed in on one camera. I did everything I could to make it look like more cameras. And that was all done in the project. So that's multicam in a live event. Now, for you guys that are saying, okay, great, but I don't do any concerts, who cares? This is something that kind of came up yesterday, and I got really excited about it, and it's only going to take a couple minutes, but I wanted to show you an application of multicam in a narrative piece, because we started logging some footage for a commercial, and the audio was recorded separately. So we had 6 or 7 scenes. Each scene we took maybe 10 takes. And normally what I would do is I would make synchronized clips, right? So I'd select my audio source, and these don't match, but just to give you an example, I'd select an audio source, a video source, and I'd go up here to synchronize clips. And what that would do is it would make a separate clip that is everything synced together. So if you have 70 takes, you now are going to have more than that. I can't do the math, but you're going to have more than what you need, because you're going to be making these additional synchronized clips. And that used to work for me fine with no complaints. But yesterday, we tried something different, and I said, why don't we try using multicam as a way to organize all the takes in each scene? And what we did is we created one multicam for each scene, and each multicam had all the takes in it, right? So we said, this is great. We've got our video, we have all of our audio, and it's take by take by take. And then what we did is when we edited, instead of having 70 different clips here, we only have 7. And what's great about this is you can go in and use favorites as a way to decide to subclip sections of it. So instead of having clips that are take 1, take 2, take 3, I now have favorites that are take 1, take 2, take 3. And when I play with these in a project, it's super easy, because let's say I love take 5, I drag it in, and there's my clip. And then I want, this is apparently a good take. We put that here. And these play just like any other file in the event browser. I really think that this is going to be the way that I do narrative pieces and pieces like this in the future, because it just seemed to work really, really well. So my time has run out. And I want to thank you guys, and I want to thank Dan. This is my thing. This is my thing. I have to say this.
Absolutely.
Final Cut Pro 10 is a different beast. If you just grab a tool that you don't know how to use, you're not going to be able to use it. Learn it the right way. Ripple Training, Linda, Larry Jordan, there are others, there are more. I like these guys. Learn it the right way. It is worth your time, because it's a tool that's worth learning. It will absolutely work for you, but you have to learn it. You can't just use it. It's not like other editing systems. And I forgot my business card. So if you want to talk to me, take a picture of this screen, and this has all my information in it. Thank you, Dan. And thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ben. It's great to have you, and we'll have you back. Do you want Ben back? All right. Ben Consoli, thank you very much.